All right, hi, I'm Carol Cartwright. I'm from Region 2. I'm the roadway manager in Region 2, and I'm one of those longtime ODOT employees. I've been here over 34 years, so I've done a bit of everything, but I've been in roadway as a manager for, I shouldn't probably say, over about 20 years. Anyway, so I'm going to go over final plans, which is the last time you're going to see a plan set to review. Plans and specifications. First of all, I'll talk a little bit about the history of final plans because it's changed a lot over from the time I've been here. It used to be that final plans was that time where each individual discipline sat down and reviewed their plan set to make sure they had everything in there. They had a quality control review from a peer. They did other checks, and we did it internally. We didn't send it out to the entire team to review. And we had a sign-off sheet in every unit. It looked slightly different for each unit. Not all of them even had a sign-off sheet at that point. So it's morphed over time, and each region started to have something slightly different. We all realized that construction really wanted another set of eyes on the plans. Because at advanced plans, you have, at the end of your review period, you have what's called an advanced plans in hand meeting. And it used to be you got all the comments from construction at advanced plans or from any other discipline that had comments, and you did all the changes, you printed out another set of plans, and you arrived to your plans in hand with plans in hand, hence the name of that meeting. Now, usually, you're getting comments back from advanced plans. We usually have time to look at those comments, but you don't necessarily have time to incorporate all of them. So you've at least been able to answer whether you're going to incorporate it or not incorporate it. So you show up at the plans at hand, and everybody sits down and you break over the plan sheets. Hopefully you go down through the comment log and you look to see what all the comments were and you make those corrections or decide how you're going to make those corrections. And if you don't have something, if something big came up and you don't know, hopefully you have a plan of action after that meeting to address it to make sure you get it done for when you're at final plans. In Region 2, I don't know if it says here, but in Region 2, we've decided that we want advanced plans to be 100%, which is a bold statement. We actually say 95 to 100%, but we'd really like everyone to believe when they're at advanced plans that you have everything done, that in your brain and however you can achieve it, that you think you've done everything you can to produce the best set of plans, that you're done. As we know, things come up and you probably aren't done, but we hope you are, because one of the things that isn't mentioned, and I'll just expand a little, part of the process is for the roadway designer to produce a 3D package. And in order for them to produce that 3D package, we need to have the bulk of the design, if not all the design like we want in Region 2, done at advanced plans so we can start producing all the reports, all that other stuff that construction needs to build the project. And there's a lot of things, and we want to make sure we have enough time that when we get to that point of it being out for bid and awarded, that we can hand all the stuff over to construction and make sure they have all the tools they need to build it. It's the last opportunity to review. Oh, so I didn't finish this history, sorry. Now, the final plans is a chance for the whole team to review the plans and special provisions, which is the only second time you've seen the special provisions. So it's the second chance to review those, the last and final chance for everybody to make their comments and make sure that you got a complete set for bidding. So like I said, you want to make sure the package flows, is complete, makes sense, maintains a consistent quality, follows all our normal ODOT procedures and standards, and in general that the project can be built from the plans. We look for completeness, inconsistencies, missing items, minor errors, and I just want to say this is not a time for there to be major comments. If there's a major comment at this point and you find a fatal flaw, you're not at final plans. So you need to go back to the drawing board, sit down with your team, and decide that you need to expand the schedule. This really is not the time to be doing that. So all those comments should have come out at DAP. But we all know this is the real life and things happen between DAP and final plans, many things. We can all talk about how many things have happened in between. Recently we had the whole ADA thing come up. And a lot of plan sets were in the middle of that phase when ADA ramps, okay, you have to build them this way, you have to have details. We had to go back to the drawing board, and a lot of them had to do more than we originally thought. So we had to expand things, and we're not always given the time. Final plan, special provisions. This is a milestone in ProjectWise. I don't know how much you guys have been talking about ProjectWise, but all of the items we've been talking about have an item in ProjectWise. So there's a submissions folder called Milestone Submissions folder. There's a category for each item or each phase. So there's a DDAP, which is draft DAP, because we send out a draft DAP before we get to final. Then there's DAP, that is the final DAP. Then there's preliminary, advance, final, and then there's PS&E, and that's how it flows. So we try to keep it consistent when we talk about it. So when you go into ProjectWise, you understand where everything goes. Everything has to be put in there. There's a protocol for everything now. It's just easier for us to find it later. Everything has to follow a naming convention, so we can also search and find them later. And these are some of the things that belong in there. So we'll have the final set of plans, final special provisions, final cost estimate, the project narrative, which has been the role of the roadway designer, but is currently being, well, in our region, we've already pushed this out to make sure that every discipline is filling out their section of the narrative, which is, the narrative just says the assumptions and design decisions you made during design process. Then there's the construction schedule, which still is responsibility of the specification writer. And the final decision tree and TMP, those are traffic items. All of those, plus there's probably a few additional things, will go into that submissions folder for review. So it gets sent out usually 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, depending on the size and complexity of your project. But you're given a chance one last time to review this final set. So at that point, when it gets sent out, you need to put all your comments in a comment log. And I'm speaking from Region 2. I believe this is consistent in all the regions, but I'm not 100% sure. But we have a comment log in each submissions folder for each milestone. It's the same one. It gets added to. There's a tab for each milestone in there. So, and there's a place to put your response. So after you've made a comment, whoever it's directed towards, that person needs to go in and make sure they've responded to that comment. This is why construction really wanted this last step. They wanted to make sure all these bigger comments, because for the most part, they spend their time in advanced plans, sitting down with that set of plans, reviewing it thoroughly, making sure they've got everything they need in there to construct it. They've made a lot of comments. They always wanted another step so they can make sure all those comments were incorporated into the plan set. So they're going to spend a lot of time, and they can look at that comment log to make sure they were all addressed. So that's the importance of that comment log. And everybody has to put it. It's a pain in the butt sometimes, because most of the time people will take out the plan sheet, us old school people especially, in paper form and make all our comments with red line. And so we'd have to take those comments and put them into the comment log. We're trying to see if there's other ways to do that. But so all those have to be addressed. All the special provision updates would be the responsibility of the specification writer after each unit fixes their portion of the special provision. So if you don't know, a specification writer compiles the special provision. So there are multiple units that do their own special provisions. So bridge does their own, traffic does their own. They write up what they want. They send it to the spec writer. They compile it, make sure everything matches, make sure their bid items match the specials, et cetera, to make sure it's a complete set. They do a lot of work in that area, but they're not responsible for that special provision. The designer who's stamping the plan sheet is responsible for that set of special provisions. And you'll see, and they actually end up signing what we call a POR sheet, which is a professional of record, during the PS&E phase. And I think Melissa, who's in the back, is going to talk about that in a minute. But at the end of this phase, you're printing digital plan sheets, which means you're printing them to PDFs. And excuse me, this is often the responsibility of the drafter. So They will print up the plan set. At that point, after you've done all the checking, you've made all the corrections during final plans, you're going to go in and sign your set of plans. So you're basically done at this point. Another part of final plans is the statement of technical review. And this form, which I have right here, looks different in every region right now. Hoping to get this standardized. We're all moving towards a digital signature form. I didn't have time to pull that one up, but in Region 2, we're at the final point of getting that signature page ready in a digital format. And so each unit has something that looks very similar to this, that they sign who did the work and then who reviewed the work. Very important to our QC procedures that we follow this at the end so we know that everybody's checked and double checked. A big part of the final plans is to check the quantities, which probably at any other milestone may not have been checked. So you'd have, often in our region, we'll use construction. Their office engineer or the inspector will have them go through the plan set and check to make sure the quantities match the bid item list, so that we know that we've got it right on the set of plans and in the bid schedule, so the quantities match. We also check, lost my train of thought there, but I can't remember. We check something else. The specification writer at this point has a peer review from another specification writer to make sure we've got everything incorporated. The drafter, that's the other thing. We don't usually have a drafting check earlier. Everyone will comment on drafting, trust me. Because oftentimes if they don't see any other errors, they'll comment on drafting. Because sometimes they stick out and people will just comment, and then I'll hear from my drafters over and over, why are you commenting on my area? But it's a good thing, because if we can find it early, it gets fixed. So it's a good thing. But at this point, another senior drafter in your office or some other region, if you only maybe have one drafter, will sit down and review it and make sure that the drafting follows ODOT procedures. This is very important as we're trying to get a little more consistent over the regions. I always say that because I have a designer in Springfield and I have most of my designers in Salem, there's a different look to both of those set of plans. And if we could get them more looking the same, and if they're just different in one region, imagine what they look like amongst all the whole state. So it's something we need to work and strive for, is a little more consistent plans. So this drafting review is very important, and I don't know if they're going to talk about it, but the manuals are being updated, and a new plans guide for each discipline is supposed to be coming out. So it will be helpful in this review process. And at this point, the roadway unit manager will also be doing a check. Oftentimes they may not have time because it shows up on their desk one day before it needs to be done. But I should also be checking to make sure this set of plans is looking good. Preliminary design is on here because oftentimes we have interchanges. And, well, that's not true. We don't have interchanges that often. But when we do, we will have a preliminary designer maybe from Tech Services, Kent Bullock, who unfortunately is retiring tomorrow. But somebody who takes his place could check our interchange layout sheet against our plan set and do that check. So that, I think, is all I have. I tried to spread it out. Let's see, I think that was the last sheet, yeah. So here's my contact. I'm gonna be back tomorrow to talk about roadway. And so all the names of all the other roadway managers will be in that presentation. So your question, hopefully that will be helpful. You know, you'll have our names if you want to come talk to us about a job. I'm always looking for good designers. You can call me if you have any other questions. I do have a lot of experience. And know the process very well. You can also call me about that too. So, thank you. Any questions? Sorry, any questions? Yeah.
I'm wondering, you talked about, and prior speakers have talked about sort of the ideal case for how a project gets delivered. How frequently do projects actually follow that path in a linear fashion?
Every
Oh, every project does. Come on. I would hope that at least 50% follow this path. And I think it's actually even more than that. But it's always the ones we remember that are the ones that got crunched up for various reasons. And I'll be honest, over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of that. I mean, in Region 2, we had, not this House bill, but we had a lot of other big projects from the last big arts projects we had, not arts, JTA, thank you. We had huge ones. We had Woodburn Interchange, Newburgh Dundee, Woodburn, I mean, all kinds. So those schedules got crunched quite a bit. We have ones that were asked to move forward. And this step is not a step I would like to ever skip. We have skipped preliminary plans when we have a rush schedule. But that's not the ideal. And we're working harder and harder to get the project schedule set up well at the beginning. Region 2 just rolled out a whole new MS project template that hopes that we will stick with our project schedules. And it's a little more detailed in how we're delivering at the end of each milestone. So hopefully that will help. But there's always going to be projects that come up. There's always going to be changes. Whatever we do to make things not happen after DAP, they will happen. And my motto is they always usually, 100% I would say, happen for the right reason. So they're a good change. They need to happen, but we might be crunched at the end to get that change incorporated.
So I have a follow-up question to that. The follow-up question is, what sort of problem-solving techniques do you find work best when you end up in a situation where something changes substantively after DAP? And maybe, obviously, there's probably lots of different ways to solve the problem, so maybe pick your most interesting example.
I think the best way to start with problem solving is to get the entire team together. So, and I want to emphasize that we're putting a little more push on the project leader in our region to do some of this like they're the ones that send out the plans and specs for review. They do that. What used to be the roadway designer did it, and then the specification writer did it. No longer in our region, the project leader does that. So I want the role of project leader in those cases to set up some kind of meeting immediately. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Make sure you all agree on a deadline you can meet. If you need to move it out, really, that we should have an honest discussion about how much more time it would take to do that. And then from a resource manager, we're going to have to look to see if we can throw somebody else at it, or we can clear that plate of somebody to try and get that through. Because in the end, we're all about getting the projects done on time. And if it comes late, we're not going to probably move it. We're going to buckle down and get it done, because that's what we do. And almost always we do. So
I'm going to add on to the your two questions. The first one was related to what percent were following the process, and that's part of what the project delivery initiative is supposed to help manage that a little bit better, because we have kind of drifted from our process. But there's always going to be those emergencies, or the special political issue that we have to solve that we're going to have, but that can't be the norm. The norm will be the phase gate type process, and then those will be the exceptions that we'll do. But then on the changes after DAP, since we are going to be monitoring the change management closer than we have, hopefully we can pick up some of those changes after they've occurred, after we've solved the problem, and that'll help us inform maybe some process improvement in our process to make sure we catch some of those before we put ourselves in that situation. So there will be an additional process improvement type capture there, hopefully. So.
hopefully.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you so much, Carol.